Started.
Raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you for questions. Go ahead, Nate.
Just what you feel you got accomplished last week as far as getting things going.
Well, I think what our goal was going into the week last week was to get refreshed, recharged, re-energized, healed up psychologically, physically, emotionally. Those are the things we talked about in the opening press conference. This is one of the first things I talked about in the first team meeting I had with the players. And I feel very, very strongly that we got those things accomplished. And it took a great effort from our staff and from our players to do that. But I think it was clear when they came back last night that we had done that.
Barry, are there any weaknesses with this LSU team?
No, they're very complete, very good. They're great. Obviously, what they do offensively and defensively, they're very gifted. And they're just super well coached on both sides of the ball and special teams as well. And so all three phases, you throw in a great talent and, great scheme and good coaching. And, you got a team playing really confident. Everybody sees it. Anybody that follows college football sees it, recognizes it. And they're certainly playing at a very high level.
Yeah, Barry, this would be a tough situation under any circumstances, but having to have your first game as interim coach on the road at the #1 team, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess you go all in, right? I mean, if you're going to do it, you go on the road. You play the #1 team in the country. It is what it is. I mean, and the truth is, Bob, our mantra, our attitude, our approach would be the same if we were playing Portland State again this week. In a rematch of them. It's about us. It's about us playing our best football game that we've played all season long. Period. End of story. All three phases. It just so happens to be that we are playing right now the best football team in the country, according to the not only the poll but the body of work through the course of the year. I mean, I'm sure you can argue some other guys that are just even with them. And that's not my job to do that. But just where they stand right now, yeah, they clearly are the best. We are going to one of the best environments in all of college football at night, and we've got some guys that have visited that stadium before. And but the bottom line is it's about us.
On Saturday night, did you watch the game, and are you one of those guys who take some notes and from the TV copy? How did you watch the game?
Well, Tom, it's interesting because I did watch the game. I watched the whole thing. Don't watch many TV games. Usually, obviously, we don't have many opportunities to do that besides open dates. And usually when I am, I'm chasing my kids around playing basketball or hanging out with them. It worked out to where I could turn that on and watch it. And I wasn't quite sure if I was supposed to be writing notes down or not, but I was writing down some mental notes. I wasn't writing anything down on paper, but I was certainly trying to. I think there's some things that you can garner from watching a live game like that as opposed to the coach's film that we get. There's no crowd noise and there's no interaction. I think there's some things that you can gain and get a feel for what that team and their pulse a little bit more. And obviously was very impressed when I watched them play. But yeah, I took the game in and took some notes and just took some things mentally and took some things to heart through that game.
What did you think of Ole Miss with Plumlee especially? They got to the edges and they had a bunch of long runs in that.
Yeah,
game.
They had a really good game plan. There's no doubt about that. And their players played really hard, and their quarterback brought a dynamic to them that was fantastic and competed hard. And obviously that was impressive to watch. But I think it was clear to see that LSU was in control of that game. From start to finish, even though there for a little while that Ole Miss surged a bit, but they were definitely in control of that football game. But hats off to Ole Miss because I thought they'd had a great plan and they played really hard.
When it comes to the game on Saturday, how do you manage things? How are you going to manage headset with your communication with the offense? How involved are you going to be on Saturday?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to be me, and just obviously I'm going to look through the game through a different lens. I think I have to transition to being a communicator to, obviously both sides of the ball and special teams about situations. Hey, are we thinking 4 downs here? Are we thinking field goal range here? Are we, do we need to punt? I mean, those are the types of decisions that obviously I'm going to be making. Have not ever made those decisions before, but I'm just going to trust my gut, my instincts, and my years of being involved in this game, being around the game, and working for different head coaches, growing up in the household of a head coach. We talk about things like that at Thanksgiving growing up, Thanksgiving table, Christmas, football comes up, and we watch games and dissect them. I'm just going to draw on those experiences to, trust my judgment and make those decisions, and obviously lean on Ron Cooper and Jeff Traylor too for some of that input. But I don't really know. I mean, if you ask me right now how that's going to go, I mean, I feel very strongly it's going to go well, but I just don't know what that looks like. I'm not practicing in a mirror. I'm just going to get those situations, let them arise, and go with my gut and make an instinct call, and let's go live with it.
But you let the coordinators kind of do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't mean to be dodging the question there, but yeah, I mean, Joe and Chief have been, working relentlessly on the game plan. We've had a full 3 days head start, on LSU, which is critical and good, and it's what you should use the open date for, and I think we've done that. And so, that's not my job to right now at this point to get involved from a schematic standpoint. Obviously, in the offensive room, we always collaborate. We have since I've been here and working with these guys, and every offensive staff I've ever worked with. It's not a one-man show. We've had a good week of collaborating and talking through the things we're going to do and what we're going to look like this week, and coming together in a consensus on this game plan. And then I'm going to let Chief and Joe do what they do as the play callers.
Coach, you have KJ Jefferson and John Stephen Jones listed either or at the quarterback position on the depth chart. What's it going to take for one of those guys to stand out this week to be the starter?
Well, that's already done. That die is already cast, I think, the way we're heading. And so, again, we talked about this. At this point, do we think that holding our announcement of a starting quarterback is going to be a significant advantage for our opponent? No, it's not. But at this point, we would be foolish, in my opinion, to declare that, to just clarify it for them so they can know exactly who they're preparing for and what they're preparing for. And so that's really the decision that I made, is just at this point, I just didn't see any justification for us to go ahead and declare that, but we know the direction we're going. And we're giving other guys the opportunity to compete, because, it's a quirky game, and, it's football. And so you got to have a guy ready, and we got guys ready, but we know the direction we're heading with that.
I'm not sure what the line might have moved to this morning, but yesterday the line came out at like 47 points, 46 and a half, something like that. What's your take on that?
Oh, I don't, nor do anybody around the building. I'm sure maybe our players have heard about that, but I don't put any stock into that, and I don't mean that to undermine what they've said it at. I'm just saying that as a football coach, if you let outside noise and situations like that affect the way you plan and prepare and practice, and let that you think about that, then you're in the wrong business. It just is. It is what it is. And again, our focus is to play our best football game that we played all year long, in all three phases together, and to block out the outside noise. Our mindset is this here. When you're an underdog, which obviously we are. And I've heard this a lot already through being out in public the last few days, and just you don't have much to lose, and I stand against that, and I don't believe that. I believe, and our philosophy is, we got a lot to gain. Okay, we have a lot to gain as a football team this week, as far as just reestablishing our identity, of who we are and how we play. A connotation of, you don't have much to lose. Yeah, I guess it's true in the word sense, but to me, as a football coach or as a competitor, that conveys the idea that, we can just have some fun and go down and just give it a whirl and just see what happens. Oh, we didn't have much to lose to begin with. You're not as invested in the approach to the game, in my opinion, when you go with that attitude. But if you flip that and you go with the approach and the attitude that, man, we've got a lot to gain, and that's just not me saying that and trying to mind jam our guys or mind trick our guys. It's the truth. We've got a lot to gain. We got 2 football games left, and we have a whole lot to gain. And if you approach it does that not even sound different when you say it that way? Right? I got you believing that, right, Bob? It's true. If you have more to gain, if you have something to gain, man, all of a sudden, is your preparation and your investment of the week and your approach to that game, is it different? You dang right it is. And so that's the challenge to our football team and our organization, is we do have a lot to gain. And so that's the approach that we're taking.
Barry, Ed Orgeron might be the second chance champ of all time with what he's doing right now. You might have been in middle school or upper grade school when he was here with the strength staff. Have you crossed paths with him? What's your knowledge of Ed and all that?
Obviously, I've just watched him from afar. I did get a chance to interact with him. He probably wouldn't remember that. Brett had him come in a few years ago and I don't remember the exact timeline, but I know he was on campus for a few days, and in the midst of maybe his transition, is obviously before he was at LSU, so I don't remember the exact timing. I think it was fresh off his time at USC, if I remember correctly, and or actually it probably would have been fresh off his time at Ole Miss. That would timeline match up, right? I think so. I don't remember, but he was here for a few days, and Brett had brought him in just to kind of, he wanted to watch practice and be around a little bit. And I had a brief conversation with him a couple different times. I don't know if he would remember that, but obviously it's somebody I've watched from afar. And I mean, he's been a polarizing figure across college football over the last several years because he's had a unique background in the way that he's, I guess, 2 opportunities to be an interim head coach. And in both of those situations, a little bit different than what I'm going through because of the timeline that he had. During those, I think he probably coached 6 or 7 games at probably both of those places. That's just my guess, somewhere around there. And so the timeline and the circumstances are a little bit different, but nonetheless, one of the things that I've seen since I've been here as going on my 7th year is that it was very clear that when he took over that team at LSU during the middle of the year, that it didn't take long for him to put his fingerprint on that football team. And you just got to say simply just hats off to him because he's done that in a very clear way, and he's got him played at a really high level, and he's done a really remarkable job there.
You expecting Bumper Pool and Adcock and maybe anybody else that was banged up last week and didn't practice?
Yeah, I think we're trending in the right direction in that regard. Refreshed, re-energized. We got 2 days of practice, hard days of practice this week, and then I do anticipate several of those guys being back. If I could sit here today and tell you for sure they're going to be game ready, all of those guys that you're mentioning, some that you haven't, I don't know that. But I think we're all trending in the right direction.
Barry, would you suggest play calls? Would you overrule play calls? How will that work on the offensive side?
Yeah, again, like I said earlier, it's been a collaborative effort, and that's one of the things that I think it's one of Joe's strengths, I think, and he's got a lot of them, but just – we work together, and on game day, if somebody, wide receiver coach or an O-line coach or somebody else sees something that they think that would be beneficial to our team, he's always quick to, listen to that. Doesn't always call it, but, quick to listen to that and digest that, especially in between series. And so do I anticipate me giving some feedback? Yeah, I do. Offering some play calls maybe, sure, but I've done that for the last 2 years that we've been here working together. It might crank up a little bit more, but probably not. I'm going to probably have my plate full, in that regard, as far as just game management and things of that nature. So that's one of the benefits of having the open date. We can kind of really fine-tune that game plan and have a real clear identity of where we're going and just let's let it rip and let our guys play fast.
Barry, back when you were a freshman, you went to Tennessee. I think they were number 4. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. But is there anything from that game that you can relate to this team and, talk –
Yeah, sure.
Off of that?
Yeah, sure. I haven't talked much about that, and I don't think I'm really going to, but I think I can gain – there's some things for me personally to gain from that, just have witnessed something like that myself. And one thing that I always remember from that game let me back up. One thing that comes up a lot about that game is people are quick to say when I meet them or talk to them about it, say, man, I remember when you beat Tennessee. And I'm always quick to say, I didn't beat them. We beat them, And, yeah, I did my part as a true freshman, but, I mean, our defense was fantastic that day. We returned a punt return for a touchdown. We got an onside kick. We had turnovers. It was a team effort to win that football game. No different than any other football game. And obviously for us to do what we want to do this week in Baton Rouge, to play our best football game of the year, it's going to take a team effort. Now, every individual has to carry their weight. Every individual, their challenge has to be and needs to be to play their best game of the year. And that's what happened that day in 1992 in Tennessee. We played our best game of the year that day. And so, yeah, I've drawn on that personally. Is that something that I'm going to make a big deal of and show, highlights from that game? Or no, but I will. On my own time, I can grab them and show them, I guess. But I'll probably not do that as a team this week.
Probably the biggest head scratcher this whole season is the up and down nature of that defense. And like Western Kentucky, you don't stop them one time in the first half, and then they don't cross the goal line on the defense in the second half. Do you have any thoughts on, you know, the A&M game and then other games, and it's just like night and day. What's going on there?
Well, you know, I haven't spent a significant amount of time, you know, trying to digest that. You know, obviously during the course of the year, I'm staying in my lane, you know, with the tight ends and then the special teams responsibilities. As you can imagine, my plate's been very full. And now in the last, you know, 9-8 days, my plate's been very full as well. But I think you would be quick to say, or it'd be easy to say, that at times we have played some really good defense, and we've just had, you know, some breakdowns, and it's kind of been a perfect storm. You know, just hearing Chief talk about it and the other defensive coaches talk about it. I mean, it's, you know, when we've made some mistakes, it's really it's been glaring because they've hit the exact right gap or the right exact calls, and so that's created some of the larger, more explosive plays. And so, and again, our focus is to play our best game. And in order to do that, man, you got to play your gap, your responsibility, play with grit, toughness, great effort, and then maybe we can piece together 4 quarters of really good defense in the moments that we've captured, the periods and the quarters that we've captured. That's what we're going to need to do these last 2 weeks, is to play our very best for 4 quarters on both sides of the ball.
As an old SEC quarterback, what's your thoughts on Joe Burrow and the season he's having?
Well, I mean, he just reeks of poise if you watch him. And I hadn't really paid much attention to him, really. We've seen some coaches film this year of them crossed over, you know, against some of the defenses that we played. But just watching the game in person on the TV copy, you can just see poise. You can see confidence. If there's a difference between those, I don't know. I mean, you see a guy in control. Those are all synonyms probably, you know. You see a guy that's got a great supporting cast. He knows it. His coaches are putting him in a great situation to succeed. Knows exactly where he's going with the ball. Does not see the rush, watches downfield. All the characteristics that you would want to see in a great quarterback, on top of being big and strong and can throw in it, move the ball in the run. I mean, he's really good.
Coach, you're talking about trying to get your guys to play the best that they can play. How do you go about doing that? Do you set small goals, individual goals, team goals, or is it kind of what you guys have always had, where you
that's good.
try to get explosive
That's right.
plays?
Yeah, it's small. It's about the process, right? I mean, you know, I'm not a process guy, or nor claim to be, but it's about a process. It's about how you prepare. It's your intentionality about how you go about the week. You know, like I told our guys last night, I mean, the first week was focused on recharging, refreshed, all the re's that you could think of. We had some fun, I think. They laughed for the first time in a while, and I think we enjoyed each other. And I think that when they came back on Sunday night, they were ready to go, knew that we had a large challenge in front of us, but I made sure that they understood that as we transitioned to this week, that feeling good, having some fun, changing up the schedule, eating something different for dinner, that's going to have no bearing on the game on Saturday night. None. So our attention has to turn to the grind that is required in preparation, the intentionality of what you put into it, and the way you practice and prepare, and the way you approach the game. And then, once you get in the game, what are you going to do when you hit adversity? And so those are all going to be the things that really, really at the end of the day affect the outcome of the game. Is sure, we're refreshed, we're recharged. I think if you brought any kid on this team, any player on this team, they would probably all agree to that. But it's important that they understand, and we lead them as coaches to understand, that how we prepare about that this week is going to be huge, and how we practice and what our mindset is. And it is a tough, tough league. It's a it's a man's game. And you got to have a grown man's mentality to have a chance to go out there on that field and play a good football game. If we want to play our best football game of the year, you got me fired up here a little bit. I'm going long, Nikki. But it's true. I mean, it's a man's game. And I don't mean that any other way than what it is. You know, I mean, it's just you got to be tough, man. You got to be physical. You got to be mentally tough and to survive. And those are the kind of qualities we have to display on Saturday. We can't just wish that to happen.
Barry, you joked about this a little on Monday, but you did try Reed Bauer at punter. What led to that, and what did you see from the two guys?
Well, Sam has really had a good fall for us, a good season, I think. And just the other day, he was just a little off. In the meantime, just like you wanted all your positions, Reed he just has brought his lunch pail to work, and he just keeps getting better, and he's really flashed in practice. Reed's very gifted as well. Really flashed in practices, and just after Sam kind of got off to a slow start the other day, I just, just like you do any other position. If it was any other position, you'd say, hey, I got a guy that's really been practicing well, and my guy right now that I'm counting on to be the guy is not performing quite to the standard that maybe he's capable of. Well, let's let him know that we're going to let somebody else do that. And so that's the only where that came from. I'm confident in both of them, and Sam's really done a nice job for us, and I'm confident he'll bounce back, but we're going to continue to compete there.
A quick word on Connor. If he continues what he's doing, he'll be the all-time field goal percentage leader. What do you thought of his season and just his career?
Yeah, just steady Eddie. He's kind of a grinder, and he's got a grinder mentality, and which is kind of unique in some way for a specialist to, I'm not saying that they're not tough, because, man, boy, you got to be mentally tough to do that. I still don't know how to get the ball off the ground. I mean, unless you give me a square toe, a spot bill square toe, I can't get the ball off the ground. I wouldn't even know where to kick the thing, to get it up. But it's amazing to me when they do, and they do it over and over again. It really still amazes me. But he's really just been steady Eddie. He's been Mr. Consistent. He hasn't been perfect, but name me one that has been. But he's been very reliable, keeps a low profile. He's done his job. Need more guys like him.
We always hear about the same guys who are leaders, Sosa and Scuda. Are there any guys who have stepped up and maybe surprised you in this time of adversity and kind of helped you lead the team from a player perspective?
Yeah, sure there's been several of them that have come up to me and that I would go to them, and it's not just those guys. But, yeah, those guys are the core of who we are. They've been here. They've paid the price, play a lot of football for us. And but there's guys, too, that haven't played a lot of football that garner respect from our football team, And so, yeah, there's others. I mean, Grant Morgan has been fantastic, bumper pool. Mike Woods is a great leader on our team. This is gonna be dangerous territory for me to start naming some guys off, not because I don't know them, but because I'm gonna leave somebody off if I keep going down this list. But yeah, we've got some guys that just stand for everything good. They're tough. They're team guys. Arkansas means a lot to them. Yeah, there's been others that have stepped up, and I guarantee you there's been countless others that have stepped up in the shadows, and that I don't even know it, and our coaching staff doesn't even know it, that have stepped up in a big way during this time of adversity, because that's their DNA. They say, I believe this, this is very coaching cliches, but one of the things I love about football is that they say it doesn't necessarily build character, it reveals it. We've all heard that before. There's a lot of truth to that. When you go through tough times like this, I mean, it really reveals kind of who you are, and I've been really pleased and quite frankly impressed with our team during this time, these last 8 days, of just how they've carried themselves.
Barry, we've talked to players on Tuesday. Have you guys made the decision players are talking with us tomorrow?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to let them talk to you for the next couple of days. I'm going to let them concentrate and focus at the task at hand, and then make them available to you after the game this week. It's been a lot for them to handle and digest. I think unity is really important here, and I have no concerns that any of our players would get up here and say something that didn't reflect that. But just for the time and situation that we're in, I made a decision that I'm going to be the voice right now, and that's just what we're going to do. I know you guys won't agree with that, but that's what we're going to do, and I hope you guys can respect that.
As far as everyone talks about Burrow, but the running game that they have, especially got a 5'8" back, it's hard to find. Just what problems is hilarious.
Yeah, a lot of problems. I mean, he's low, and he's got great pad level, and he's strong as an ox, and when you usually run the ball, the box is kind of a little bit thinner. There's not many guys in there because they've got you spread out, and very dangerous part of their offense. I don't think he's overlooked, because I think he's really starting to gain some more traction just nationally of people recognizing the talent that he is. And so that creates a great challenge as well when they spread you out and throw the ball around, and then all of a sudden they hand it to somebody with his talent behind a line that's got that talent and size and stature. Creates challenges. That's what makes a great offense. They're balanced. They can do both. And they kind of make you pick your poison a little bit in that regard. We just got to do a great job of tackling.
know LSU has a lot of good athletes on defense, obviously, but they don't seem quite as dominating. I know Ed wasn't happy with all the yards they gave up to Ole Miss. Well, what's your take on their defense?
I think their defense is very good. I think they're extremely well coached. This is my 4th year, I guess, now to go against Coach Aranda as far as being here. I believe that's right. I think that's right. I think this is his 4th season. It's either 3rd or 4th, but obviously somebody's got a great reputation nationally, and you can see why. Puts his players in a great position to succeed. And they got great talent, and they play hard. I think part of what you see a little bit is sometimes they score so fast on offense that their defense is probably playing a few more plays than they've typically played because of how dynamic they are on offense. But this is a complete team. This is a complete team on offense and defense and special teams. There is no doubt about that. They play complementary football. They got a really good defense, and our side of the ball, we got is just as equal as a challenge as our defense does.
Thanks, Barry.
Appreciate everybody.